Hello, everyone, and welcome. In this explainer for your AMC course, we're going to tackle a massive question. When you look at the news on your phone, is it just showing you the world as it is, or is it actually building the world you see? Let's get into it. So this is the big one, the central question that media studies has been wrestling with for decades. Is the media just a mirror, reflecting what's already there, or is it more like an architect, actually drawing up the plans for our social world? Okay, before we really dive deep, we need to connect this to your AMC program. And look, this isn't just about ticking a box for the exam. Understanding this framework gives us the exact tools we need to take apart how the media really works.
So, as you can see, we're working inside the theme of faire, société, literally making society. And our specific axis is représenter la société, or representing society. So our focus is dead on how the media doesn't just show us society, but actively makes and represents it. This whole process shapes our understanding of everything: community, identity, power. Getting this is absolutely key for your analysis.
So this is our core question for today. First, we're going to look at the theory, the incredible power the media has to literally construct our social reality. But then we're going to put that up against the real world, the practical challenges that journalists are dealing with every single day. It's theory versus reality.
Here's our game plan. It's super straightforward. We'll start with the big ideas, then look at a case study, check out the real-world problems, and wrap up with some practical skills to help you ace your exam.
All right, part one. Let's start by getting a handle on the immense theoretical power of the media. And to do that, we have to talk about the work of Elihu Katz, who's basically one of the founding fathers of mass communication research. First up, a key concept: civil society. Now, this isn't the government, and it's not the economy. Think of it as that space in between, where we all come together, in clubs, in public debates, to form our opinions and figure out our collective identity. And what's the engine of this space? The media. It's the place where we imagine and argue about who we are as a nation.
And within that civil society, you have the public sphere. You can think of it as the main stage for all these national conversations. Way back when, it was newspapers that created this public sphere, right? Letting people all over the country read about and discuss the same things. Well, today, TV and the internet have totally transformed it.
Okay, now this next concept is super important, so really pay attention here. It's the media event. According to the theorists Daniel Dayan and Elihu Katz, these are moments when the media stops just reporting on society and starts actively performing it. Think about a huge royal wedding, or the Olympic opening ceremonies, or a presidential inauguration. These things are broadcast live, they interrupt our daily routines, and they basically act like huge collective rituals that reinforce our shared values and our sense of national belonging. So, what's the bottom line? Here's the crucial point. Katz is arguing that the media acts like a powerful social glue. It creates these shared experiences that tie millions of strangers together into what one historian famously called an imagined community. It literally has the power to build up, or even break down, our sense of national identity. So that's the theory. But how does this power actually work in practice? Well, let's look at a really powerful historical case study that shows this in action: the Watergate scandal in the United States. Now, to understand the Watergate story, you need to understand the concept of framing. Framing isn't just what the media reports, it's how they report it. By choosing certain words, certain images, certain people to interview, the media can frame a story as just a simple crime or as a massive national crisis. They can define who the good guys and bad guys are. It's incredibly powerful. The Watergate story didn't just explode overnight. It started out as a pretty minor news item about a weird break-in. But over 2 years, and this is the key part, especially with the televised Senate hearings, it was slowly constructed into this huge national drama. Those hearings, they turned the whole thing into a true media event. And this slide just brilliantly shows the power of framing. Just look at the shift. The story started out being framed as a third-rate burglary. Just politics, nothing to see here. But the media narrative reframed it as a deep, profound threat to American democracy itself, a violation of the sacred trust between the president and the people. The media literally built the crisis. Okay, so this power to frame reality seems enormous, right? Almost absolute. But what happens when these big, grand theories about media power smack into the daily pressures and craziness of a modern newsroom?
This brings us to a really critical counterargument. because recent research with actual journalists shows there's a pretty big gap between the ideal role of the media we've been talking about and the reality of how it works day to day.
So what are these constraints? Well, journalists today are under incredible pressure. As you can see, they're up against what one called the relentless opponent of time, that 24/7 news cycle. They have to deal with political and economic pressure from the people who own the media companies. Often they aren't specialists in the communities they're covering, which means they end up relying way too much on official sources. And what's the result? Well, you get coverage that can be negative, incomplete, and full of stereotypes.
And this quote from a journalist, wow, it just gets right to the heart of the problem. It points to this huge ethical dilemma. Official sources are the holy grail. They're essential. You need them. But they don't always tell the truth. So the real challenge for journalists is trying to balance that official story with the real voices of the communities they're supposed to be representing.
Okay, let's bring these two sides together. On one hand, you have the media as this powerful social architect from the theory. On the other, you have the stressed, constrained journalist from reality. It's time to put this whole complex picture together and give you a clear method for your baccalaureate exam. For your exam, please remember this simple but super powerful structure. Idea, example, explanation. It's a game changer. First, state your argument, nice and clear. Second, back it up with a specific example from the text. Third, and this is crucial, explain how that example proves your point and link it all back to the AMC theme. Honestly, this is exactly what the examiners are looking for.
So here it is, the clear, synthesized answer to our big question from the beginning. The media isn't just a mirror or an architect. It's actually both. It has this incredible power to build our social reality, but that power is always being challenged and limited by the very real, messy world that has to operate in.
And I'll leave you with one final thought to take away. Today, with social media and niche news, that single public sphere we talked about is breaking up into what some people call public spherules, all these little separate bubbles of conversation. So the question is, how does this fragmentation affect our ability to faire société, to make society together? And that question links our discussion today perfectly to another key axis in your program, espaces publics, espaces privés. Thanks for your attention.